Have you ever heard a story that just doesn't make sense? I'm not talking strange, I'm talking impossible. Today, we're diving into a text that looks at two events just like that. We've got a mudslide that just stops, and a wildfire that somehow spares one single house. The author uses these to ask a huge question. What if there are forces out there that are way beyond what science can explain? Let's jump right in.
Okay, so the whole idea we're digging into today, it all hinges on these two, frankly, mind-boggling real-world events. And the author is very clear, these aren't just some lucky breaks or weird coincidences. No, these are presented as moments that basically throw our understanding of physics right out the window.
All right, first up, we're heading to Atami, Japan. I want you to really picture this. A massive, terrifying mudslide. A whole wall of dirt and rock and who knows what else just thundering down a mountain. And then it just stops. For a full 16 seconds, it freezes in place. And right in its path is a van. Those 16 seconds are just enough for the driver to get away before, boom, the whole thing starts moving again. I mean, seriously, how does that even happen?
Okay, so from a mudslide that stops, we go to a fire that seems to pick and choose. We're in Malibu, California. A wildfire is just tearing through a neighborhood, absolutely devastating it. We're talking more than 700 homes burned to the ground, total wasteland. But right in the middle of all that ash and destruction, there's one single mansion, completely untouched, pristine. It's like an island of calm in a sea of fire. Again, what in the world could explain that?
And that's really the author's whole point, right? These events just don't fit into our neat little scientific boxes. A mudslide taking a 16-second break? A fire that skips a house? That's just not how gravity and combustion are supposed to work. So this leads us to the big central question of this whole piece. If the laws of the material world can't explain it, then what can?
Well, the author's answer, it takes a hard left turn away from science. We're stepping completely out of that world and into the realm of the spiritual. The explanation we're about to explore has nothing to do with physics or random chance. It's all about a higher power and how that power might actually interact with our world.
The core concept here is something called heaven's protection. Now, this isn't just, random good luck or some miracle that zaps down from the sky. The author makes a really key distinction. This is something that's earned. It's a state of being, almost like a divine shield, that you get because of who you are on the inside and the things you do.
So you're probably asking, okay, so how do I get this heaven's protection? Well, according to this text, it's less about a to-do list and more about a to-be list. It all starts with a foundation of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. From there, it's about building a genuine, deep-seated reverence for God, for life itself, for nature. And the author isn't just making this up. They point to the core teachings of huge spiritual figures like Jesus, Buddha, and Laozi, saying, hey, this has been the path all along. The idea is that this path is what keeps you far from disaster.
Okay, so this brings up a really practical question, right? If the goal is to be protected from all this crazy stuff happening on the outside, where should you put all your effort? The author has a fantastic metaphor to explain this.
The message here is a huge shift in perspective. It's saying, hey, stop worrying so much about the disasters out there or chasing after more stuff. Instead, turn all that focus inward. The real path to being safe, the author argues, is to work on your spiritual garden. You got to cultivate it, tend to it, nurture all that inner goodness and reverence. It's a total flip. It's not about what you have, it's about who you are.
And this is the ultimate payoff for all that inner work. The author claims that people who get to this state of spiritual purity, they become, for all intents and purposes, untouchable. They're basically immune to the biggest dangers you can think of. Floods, fires, plagues, you name it. In this worldview, a pure soul isn't just a nice thing to have, it's the most powerful shield you can imagine.
You can see how a philosophy like this would change, well, everything. If your inner state, your soul, can literally protect you from a mudslide, then our whole idea of what's valuable in life gets flipped completely upside down. So look at this comparison. On one side, you've got everything the material world tells us to chase: money, power, fame, even things we think of as good like wisdom or relationships. But on the other side of the scale, there's just one item: a perfect soul. And according to the author, that one thing outweighs everything else. It's not even a contest.
So this all leads to a pretty wild conclusion. The argument is that for people who are spiritually pure, the laws of physics, well, they kind of become optional. Divine power can just step in and hit the pause button on reality. That's how a mudslide stops. That's how a fire skips a house. There's a higher law in play, one that can overrule everything we think we know about the universe.
So, if having a perfect soul is the most valuable thing in the universe, and it can literally protect you from anything, what does that mean for us? Like, what's the point of our lives? The author wraps this all up with one last, beautiful analogy.
It's simple, but it really hits home. The author says to think of life as a journey. We're all travelers, but we fall into two camps. You've got the wise traveler. This person is actually enjoying the ride, looking at the scenery, appreciating the experience. Then you have the foolish traveler, who's just running, head down, chasing after money, wealth, fame, completely missing the point of the trip. And the punchline? The wise traveler gets that heaven's protection, while the foolish one is basically abandoned, left to face the dangers alone.
And that brings us to the core message. This is the thesis of the whole thing, boiled down to one sentence. The author's basically saying, forget everything else. The essence of your life, the greatest thing you can possibly do is to purify your soul. Everything else is just a distraction.
And so that's the question the author leaves us with. And it's one we kind of have to ask ourselves. If our life is this big journey, which kind of traveler are we? Are we actually appreciating the scenery? Or are we just chasing something else entirely? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me today.